Hey folks, CA Rachana Ranade here and I welcome you all to today's interesting video. I'm sure everyone is super excited because budget 2023 is around the corner. So everyone wants to understand that which could be few sectors which would be in focus wherein we can expect some announcements. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about top 3 sectors wherein we do expect certain announcements, and in turn we are also going to talk about certain stocks to keep in your watch list which are related to these sectors. So keep on watching the video till the end. This video is brought to you by Bharat Pay 12% Club, but more on this later. So to start or to boil down to certain sectors, we need to understand, we need to interpret few data points, right? So for that, have a look at this article. If you see, this is an article by Goldman Sachs, and it says that if we are checking or if we are analyzing the pre-poll budget, it says that in the last 15 years, typically there has been an increase in the allocation towards the infrastructure, and there has been a decrease in allocation in the defense spending. Now you need to understand one or two more important points here. Number one, this talks about the pre-poll budget scenario. Okay, I understand this year's is not a pre-poll budget. Pre-poll means what? Polls will ideally happen, elections will happen in 2024 next year. So ideally 2024 budget will be the pre-poll budget. But let's try and get up from this budget itself and understand where could the allocation increase. So ideally it should be infrastructure, followed by one more important point that we said, that it could be a cut in the defense sector. Simple till here. But the moment I talk about infrastructure sector, one thing comes to our mind, and that is NIP. What is NIP? It's National Infrastructure Pipeline. For that, let's understand few key points. Our government had said that from financial years 2020 to 2025, they are going to allocate 102 lakh crore rupees, that is 102 trillion rupees, towards infrastructure projects, wherein they said that center and state is going to account for 39% each, and private sector players would account for 22% as a source of funds for the same program, right? They also, now first we need to understand, before we move ahead, we need to understand that this 100 lakh crore rupees, is this a big amount or is this a small amount? So for that we'll have to compare it with something. So if I were to compare it with the allocation for infrastructure from 2008 to 2017, the infrastructure investment was 60 lakh crores. So 60 lakh crores in a span of 10 years, and now we are talking about 102 lakh crores in a span of 5 years. So is this number big? Answer is obviously yes. If this thought process which we have thought about, our government has thought about, if it were to be true, then ideally I feel that our dream of India becoming a $5 trillion economy, I'm sure this one will definitely give it a big push. Now we have to go a little bit more deeper, and we have to understand that if I'm talking about 102 trillion rupees, how is the breakup of that? Because infrastructure is a very wide term, what will be the breakup of that? For that, have a look at this chart. Now look from the bottom, where you can understand that where is the highest allocation given. Highest allocation is towards roads, which is almost 19.64 lakh crores, followed by urban and housing, then railways, then conventional power, and then renewable energy. Now out of these top 5 allocation wale sectors, in conventional power, when we drilled down a little bit deep, we understood that this one includes only major two projects. One is Dilbang Hydel Power Project, which is awarded to NHPC, and second one is HVDC Bipole Link Project, which is awarded majorly to Power Grid. Okay, so this is only about two companies, no specific sector deep research as well. So if you want, you can first add up these two stocks to your watch list, because these two have been awarded projects in conventional power sector. Okay, moving ahead with the balance four sectors. Now we have to understand where would be the focus on right now. Why? Because again, understand, this entire allocation of 102 lakh crores is for how many years? For 5 years. Out of that, where are we? Because we are in 2023 right now, so how much are in implementation, how are still not even conceptualized, or what? For that, have a look at this chart. You will understand that almost 42 lakh crore worth projects are under the implementation stage, which includes what? Expressways, national grid, PMAYG, that is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, mainly in the Gramin sector, rural sector. Under development, what can you see? Renewable energy, again third point, renewable energy. Conceptual stage, again you can see renewable energy. And unclassified, again sector is power. Okay, all in all, what can I say? Going back to the previous image here, you can understand that roads are already under implementation, urban housing already under implementation, conventional power we already talked about. So two things under focus, two sectors under focus: one, renewable energy; second, railways. And that's what we are going to discuss in the next part of the video. Now, before we understand about renewables, I think understand about the entire power scenario is more important. And for that, have a look at this chart. If you see from 2016 to 2022, our demand, which is depicted by the blue line, a blue color, and orange talks about the peak met. That is nothing but supply. We are almost going neck to neck from 16 to 22. Just for a fun fact, let me tell you that entire power has grown at 100-fold since independence, but still we are going neck to neck. It's good, our economic activity is increasing much more than that. But if there is a gap between demand and supply, so demand is always more than the supply, then what will happen? uh, Load shedding. Animation team has also gone into the groove of the lecture. Load shedding मध्ये दिवस घालून टाकले त्यांनी. Okay, no problem. But now we have to understand that if this be so, even for 22 you can see minus zero point 0.2, so we are still in deficit. Was there a very rough patch that we went through in 2022? Answer is yes, and that peaked in June. If you have not seen this video, you have to do that after watching this entire video. This will tell you about the electricity crisis that happened way back in June 2022. Moving ahead with the solution right now. If there is a shortage, then how could we actually sort out this problem? For that, we have to understand what is the fuel mix capacity right now. Have a look at this chart. You'll see that as on 2022 year end, you can see that thermal power was contributing to 63% of the fuel requirement. You can imagine something like this. To meet the power generation, coal is being used and electricity is being generated. How much is generated from that? That is 63% of the requirement. Renewable energy only 22%, hydropower 13%, and nuclear 2%. Now, if you look at the projected figures of 2025, you can see that thermal power is being decreased from 63% to 50%. Renewable is the biggest jump from 22% to 39%. Hydro, small dip, and nuclear more or less flat. So, from this chart also we can understand that yes, renewables ideally should be in focus. Now, if you also go back to the chart where we talked about, acha, have a look at this. Here we had discussed that all in all, renewables and power sector was more into which stage? Development and conceptualization stage. And baki roads and all that, these are in the implementation stage. So we have got to know about both these points right now, correct? But one more important point that we have to understand right now is what was our target, how much have we achieved. So for that, some important figures. As at the end of 2022 December, our target was to reach 175 gigawatts of renewable energies installed capacity. Where are we? At 114 gigawatts. By the end of 2030, we are expected to reach 450 gigawatts. If we are able to achieve this, well and good. In that case, renewables can be a sector which can see a big push. Out of this, which are the two major ones in focus? One is solar power, which is the largest source of renewable energy, and second one is wind, which is the second largest. One final data point before we conclude. Have a look at this chart, and you can see that from March 16 to March 21, India's renewable energies installed capacity has grown at a rate of 15%. We are talking about 16 to 20. It has grown at 15%. If you were to extend it to 21, it has increased by 16.3%. Okay. But out of this, if you have a look at those blue color bars, which are about solar, you can see that solar has increased by 42%. Now, which stocks could be in focus if we were to focus on the renewables and specifically solar? For solar, there is one stock, that is Adani Green. If you have not watched this video, do have a look at this video as well after watching this video, obviously. But which are the other stocks that you can focus on? They could be Adani Power, NTPC, JSW Energy, and Tata Power. Let's move on with the second sector where we are expecting some strong capex announcements, and the sector is railways. For your information, Indian Railways is the fourth largest railway operator in the world. First one is USA, second one is Russia, third one is China, and fourth one is India. Well, this one accompanied by an amazing population number. I'm sure you might have read in the news that India officially surpassed the Chinese population, and now you can imagine fourth largest network operator for railways plus highest number of population. What do you think? Where does Indian Railway generate its highest revenue from? From goods or from passengers? Passengers? For that, have a look at this chart. You can see that 75% revenue is generated from freight, not passengers. Barely 20% is generated from passengers and balance sundry. Okay. Now, if this be so, do you think that government must have focused a lot on increasing the railway tracks, right? Now, for that, let me again tell you one piece of information that in the last 64 years, the road network has grown by 12.5 times, but the railway network could grow only 21%. Okay. Why did I talk about road network? Because if it is not rail network which is strong, then the companies will have to have some other modes of transport, that will be roadways. Now you might be thinking that maybe more road networks being developed is equal to maybe the road ka freight might be lower, the cost of transportation for roads might be lower. Is that the case? Answer is again no. The tariff for rail transport is way too lower than road transport. Then don't you think that all the companies would prefer railways as a mode of transportation? Unfortunately, answer is no. Why? Because there are a lot of problems related to rail transport. Something like transit time, wagon supply, complicated rules and procedures and whatnot. And the biggest point is also about SOPs, very stringent SOPs. You don't know about that? I'll give you an amazing example for this. Assume that there are these two tracks which are now going to go into a single track, and we have one train here, and this is like a passenger super fast train. Okay, and there we can see that's a freight train. What do you think priority will be given to whom? Obviously, passenger superfast train. Don't ask me the logic. Okay, it is passenger superfast train. I'll give you one more example. Okay, assume that here we don't have a passenger superfast train. Here we have an ordinary passenger train, and here we have freight train. Remember the revenue breakup, na? Now priority will be given to whom? Obviously, ordinary passenger train. Again, don't ask me the logic. Why? These are the SOPs for sequence of priority of trains. And where is freight train? 11th. Now, do you think that our Indian railways need to do something to solve the problem for priority and to solve this entire problem to improve the situation in short? And for that, government has come up with two solutions. One is a dedicated freight corridor, and second one is cargo terminals. So just in case if you have never seen a cargo terminal, that's how it would look like. In the previous budget, it was announced that we would come up with 100 PM Gati Shakti, 100 PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals, and these would be ideally completed in the next 3 years. So, ideally in the first year, how many should have been completed? 33, 34. As on date, around 15 Gati Shakti terminals have been completed, but at least half of the target has been completed. Let's not discuss more about that. Let's move on to the second one, which is about the dedicated freight corridor. How does this look like? That's how it would look on the map. But unfortunately, this okay talks about western corridor, eastern corridor, whatnot, but doesn't talk about how much kilometers was proposed, how much is completed, are there any upcoming projects or not. So for that, have a look at this chart. You can see very clearly that eastern dedicated freight corridor and western dedicated freight corridor, the percentage commissioned is how much? 60% and 54%. So in totality, 57% has already been commissioned. So they are going at a good pace here, and there are also certain new proposed corridors which would also be more than what 1115 kilometers for east coast corridor. There are also some now north south sub corridors which are coming into play. So all in all, tell me, with all these dedicated freight corridors and cargo terminals, do you think that the speed of trains would increase? Yes. Why? Because they will not have to stop every now and then. Correct? In fact, I read a few articles over the internet. The numbers were different in different articles, but I can say all in all, whatever I understood, the speed of the trains now with these improvements have increased by almost 10 kilometers per hour, and they are now clocking almost 50 kilometers per hours. Can there be any other way to upgrade the speed? And that for that we can have a track upgradation. I'm sure everyone knows this is how our current tracks look like, and this is the way they could ideally look like with this new technology which has cement as a base. The new age trains can go at a much faster speed. Okay, now all in all, with this, can I say that the overall railway capex we need to understand how much is the proposed. That's where we are going to focus on, right? So in financial year 2022, the capex was 1,90,267 crore, and which is expected to go to 2,45,800 crores in FY23. So we do see a good jump. And if you were to compare it with FY14, the budget at that, the capex for railways at that time was 53,989 crores. So we do already see a big jump. Which could be the stocks in focus for this? Stocks could be something like RITES, IRCON, IRFC, RVNL for that matter. And if you remember the cement tracks that I was talking about, for that it could be something like Ultratech Cement, Ambuja. For the tracks to be raid, it could be something like NMDC, Tata Steel, and a few more. If you want me to cover any of these stocks or the previously discussed stock in a little bit more detail, do let me know in the comment section. I would either make a video or would definitely write at least a blog for you all. Now, before we move on to our third sector, I would want to thank Bharat Pay 12% Club for sponsoring this video. 12% Club is powered by Bharat Pay through its RBI registered NBFCs like Lane Dane and Liquid Loans, providing you returns of up to 12% per annum, which will be credited to your account on a daily basis, and withdrawal requests can be placed at any time without any fees, and it gets credited to your account within 48 hours. And only with a few clicks, you can start investing through UPI and net banking, and that too at no cost. But then, is this absolutely risk free? No. Please keep in mind that 12% Club is a facilitator for peer-to-peer lending, and that P2P lending has its own risk factors. So please go through the terms and conditions carefully before investing. And if you want to know more about this, please check out the link in description box below. Alright, two sectors done. We talked about RR by RR. It was renewable sector, railway sector, and let's move on with the third sector. Let me disclose it right away. It's going to be the fertilizer sector. But then you'll be like, really? Fertilizer sector and capital expenditure? What's the connection? So for this sector, we have not taken capex as a theme. We have taken OPEX as a theme. OPEX is operating expenditure. So this is a sector which requires a lot of government support in the form of subsidies. Just to give you an example of how much would be the government bill for subsidies, have a look at this. One bag of urea, this is around a 45 kgs bag, okay, that would be sold at 242 rupees per bag. Okay, so what is the selling price? 242 rupees. And to make this bag, what is the cost? That is around 2000 rupees. Now, which is going to be that mad manufacturer or importer who is going to be like, okay, I'm ready to sell it at 245, but my cost is 2000. No one is going to do that. Now, for that, don't you think there'll be a support by the government? Exactly. That red part is now become green because of the subsidy which the government gave, and that is why the seller, be it the manufacturer and seller or the importer and the seller, he or she, I mean that entity might be able to generate at least some profits. Okay, so I hope you have understood about this entire subsidy ka theme. Now you might be like, Rachana, for 1800 rupees you are making this entire sector ka video. That's about one bag. Now if I were to tell you about the total bill that the government has to shell out, have a look at this. Here you can see the budgeted 2022-23 figures. You can see that the fertilizer subsidy was budgeted to be 1,05,222 crores. So it's a almost 1.05 trillion ka budgeted expenditure. Then you'll be like, "Arey, but food subsidy is the highest." Wait. In May 2022, another news came up which said that the government is going to give an additional fertilizer subsidy of 1.1 trillion rupees. Now you can imagine, if we add this up to the budgeted figure, that will go to 2.15 trillion, taking it to the highest in this entire table space for subsidies, right? Now we have understood the pain for this sector. Pain is huge amount of subsidies which is to be given by the government. Is there any solution for that? Obviously, yes. The solution is about a nano urea technology. Now what is this? We have come up with nano urea. It's a nanotechnology based revolutionary agro input. Just to give you I'm not from this field, that is the reason why maybe I fumbled, but just to give you an explanation for this, again going back to our urea bag example, which is a 45 kgs ka bag, this can be replaced with that nanotechnology ka bottle of just 500 ml, and this one apparently can increase the efficiency by more than 80% as compared to that entire bag, and this in turn can increase the yield by almost 3 to 16%. Now, if this be so, don't you think that government will take a lot of efforts to increase the production capacity for such nano urea based technology related bottles? Answer is yes. So current capacity is 50 million bottles of 500 ml each, and government is planning to take it to 440 million bottles by 2025. Now if this is done, you can imagine, if more and more such bottles are being manufactured in India, can I say this can support the Atmanirbhar Bharat theme? Yes. If this be so, the imports that we are doing right now for the urea bags, which is almost 30% of our total requirement, can our imports also drastically reduce? Yes. So our import ka bill will be reduced and our fiscal deficit will also be reduced. So all in all, this is going to be a very big positive for this sector. Is there any other solution? Well, before we understand the solution, let's again understand one more pain point. The point that I was trying to make, that government is just going to give the subsidy as much as to cover the cost, to cover the deficit, or to make a minimal profit. So you might have understood by now that a majority of companies in this sector are in either minimal profits or losses. But even if I were to have a look at the entire industry as a whole, have a look at this chart. You can see we have talked about PAT as a percentage of turnover at entire industry level from years 2017-18 to 2021-2022, and you can see that they are almost at what, 0.39%, 0.6%. Maximum was only in 1 year 2.47%. Now with this, and by the way, this is the data of almost 24 fertilizer companies. Okay, now with this, don't you think that government would want to sell the stake wherein they have invested quite a bit of their money? Where have they already invested in? So some of the PSU stocks could be something like this: RCF, National Fertilizers, Madras Fertilizers, and so on. You can read this list for yourself. Government is wanting to sell off their stake in these companies. This is called as divestment. Now you will be like, okay, government knows that this is like a pain point for them. Who on earth will buy these companies? Now typically what is done is that these are generally given at a discounted price, so that the buyer who feels that I have certain capabilities, management capabilities, through which I'll be able to control the costs, because they can't control the selling price. We'll be able to control the costs and we'll be able to make some profit with this. So this is how the divestment theme is planned up, and if this be so, there are certain stocks that you have to keep a watch on. They could be something like RCF, Madras Fertilizers, FACT, GNFC, and National Fertilizers. I hope with this entire description of three sectors, renewables, railways, fertilizers, I hope you enjoyed this video a lot. If you loved it, don't forget to share it with your friends. And if you want to know more about certain basic concepts of budget, you can click here. And if you want to know more about top 2 stocks on my radar, you can click here. Till then, take care, Jai Hind, and bye-bye.